We're going to start off, this is called basically the smashing down of the Synagogue of Satan. As you know, synagogue itself is a Greek word. The European converted Jew is not the true house of Israel. This is not racist. This is what is being presented as the truth. They can never say that it's a lie. They can never say it's off information. They can never sit there and say somebody's getting in their feelings. Because as you see, most of the information being presented is being presented from people that's of their own or even their own Caucasians. So I need the brother to read Genesis 32, verse 28, please.
Genesis 32, verse 28. And he said, your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel.
Now, one of the things to point out in the Hebrew in which we speak, right? I don't have to point it, but it says, Wayomar Elau, and he said unto him, Ma Shimka, what is your name? Wayomer Yaakov. And he said, Jacob. Wayomar Lo Yaakov Ya'amel Od Shimka. Now, the reason why I'm doing this, because you got people who swear the black Israelites don't know anything about Hebrew. See, that's why that guy, that fool Meza, said, well, if these guys are know the Hebrew, then they could probably be the true ones. So just like the brother Daniela, when he filmed me, the brother Sha'al, and what we did in that store, smashed it. For those who saw it know what it is. So read verse 29, then we're going to go on. Talk shit.
Verse 29. Then Jacob asked, saying, tell me your name, I pray. And he said, why is it that you asked about my name? And he blessed them there. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved.
Thanks. Hey, what's up with them?
I got you.
Okay. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out, go to the next slide. Torah, thanks. Now, Israel is said is Yisrael. Now, I know that some people say Yashra'ala. That's not the subject matter at hand. What we're talking about is why we say the word Jew is off. From the Hebrew root word Sada, the Hebrew lexicon, you can check that out in Davidson, page 739, Ben Yehuda Dictionary on page 305. Because the Hebrew root word Sada means to prevail. Alright? Israel is a compound word, Yisrael, from Yisra, the third person, masculine singular, future tense. Now, third person is he, whatever, right? Of the word Sada or Shara. And the word El, from the Hebrew root word Ayel, meaning to be mighty. Continue on. Next slide, thanks. Now, Deuteronomy 28:32. Can you give me that while I go over this right here? The Hebrew right here says, Baneka unoteka netunim la'am aker. Your sons and your daughters, they shall be given. That's the other form of it. La'am aker. This for another people, which means everybody on earth ain't the same. We'eneka ro'ot. Wakalo elehen kol hayom. Wa'en el yadeka. The point in going over this is this part right here. I'm going to ask the brother to read that, please.
Deuteronomy 28 and 32.
Thank you.
And it says, your sons and your daughters shall be given to another people, and your eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all day long. And there shall be no strength in your hand.
Now, the brother read the word strength. The word El means strength or power, which is loosely translated into the Hebrew or the English word God. So that's the point I wanted to go over in that particular part. That's why I said earlier we're going to go over linguistics. Continue, next slide. Now, this right here is referred to as the Danite steel. Now, this right here is where it says Beit Dawid, the Beit Yod Tau, and then Dawid, Dalet Wa Dalet. Beit Dawid means the house of David. Now, the point in going over this is to show that they found this in 1994. So, when the guy Radford wrote his book in 1992, it said, well, there's no secular evidence of David. He obviously didn't know what they was going to find later on. So that's something to be pointed out. So this right here is a record that the ancient Danites left concerning the battles that ancient Israel had with the ancient Arameans. All right? Continue, next slide. Thank you. Now, Israel, sometimes by some individuals, they try to say it comes from what they say, Isis, Ra, and El. That's just something we wanted to talk about. In the Meneptah Stela, which was actually, he put his name on the stela that Amenhotep III made. All right, so we're going to go over that. This says in the ancient Egyptian, it's rare. The Y, S, R, I, A, R. People This being the symbol of a person or subdued. Israel, the foreign people are subdued. So just wanted to point that out. This, on the other hand, is the Egyptian hieroglyph for what they call Isis, which is said in ancient Egyptian as Or-Set. So how can Israel, or even Ashra-Allah, be coming from, if this is Israel, if this is Or-Set, how did this become Israel? The whole writing is different. So the linguistics aspect is totally off. Continue, brother. Thank you. Next slide. Now, Karnak and Ajalon matter. Ajalon was the land of the tribe of Dan, the tribe I claim actually, right? It says on the walls of Karnak it is said as Ayalun. That's how it's said in ancient Egyptian. Since there is no L syllable inside of Egyptian, the open mouth R is transliterated to the L in other languages. So what we're looking at, number 14, this is the Shishak or king of the 22nd dynasty of Egypt, and what they say they actually captured. So this is one of the cities that's actually mentioned in this particular part right here. Next slide. Now, Alexander, who was a Caucasian or white guy, shown homage. Something is wrong, and I spelled it wrong like that on purpose. You understand? This right here shows Alexander, the Greek, king of Macedonia and Greece unified, being shown homage inside the Egyptian wall. This is the actual Egyptian writing speaking in reference about Alexander. All right? How do we see an image in Egypt of Alexander, who was a European, Macedonian, on the walls of Egypt, next to a god of Egypt, if ancient Egypt or ancient Kemet is supposed to be pro-black? How do you have a white man who's a sodomite, a homosexual, a murderer, a rapist, being paid homage? Why did Alexander and Caligula, both faggots, both rapists, both into incest, why did their Ruach or their Raha actually feel so comfortable inside of Egypt? Because certain spirits connect to other spirits. That's why Alexander and Caligula, both mass murderers, decided to sit there and get into the cult of Isis. But see, the so-called Kemetic community, they, no offense, try to sit there and say, well, you know, they were great leaders and that's why we should sit there and look at that aspect, but they don't deal with righteousness. Read on, next.
Get it right, brother. That's right.
Next slide, please. Now, Asiatic captives in Egypt. This is a captive. They try to sit there and say at one point, he was just chilling. Son, look at the arms behind dude. He's not chilling. This right here is coming from the walls of Karnak. Speaking of another captive, these are part of the Amu, Retenu, Setu, and so forth and so on of the other terms that the ancient Egyptians referred to the Asiatics. Now, when they spoke about these Asiatics, they did not give them a specific name. They gave them a generalized name. It wasn't solely a specific one. Read on, next. Thank you. Next slide. Yes, please. Now, this is Tut against the Asiatics as well as Ramses. This here is Ramses stated killing his enemies. The Cushite, the Cushite, which is the Nubian, the Canaanite, and the Amu, or the Asiatic. But they say this is supposed to be black civilization. Let me explain something. The word civilization comes from the Latin root word civilis, which means city. You understand? So when they say we need to find what civilization, they're basically trying to sit there and say, okay, if you look at Beverly Hills, that's one thing. And then if you look at South Central, that's another thing. One is supposed to be higher than the other. You look at what they call the Creek, the Cherokee, the Chickasaw, the Seminole, and the other one I forgot. They say those are the 5 civilized tribes. So you're basically saying, forget the Apache, forget the Micmac, and forget the Shoshone, because they're not civilized. That's the problem when black people don't know their land, language, and culture. Read on, next. Yes, please. All right. Necho the second and almost the second Combs. Now, why did I title it like that? It's because this guy right here was a two-faced individual. You understand? He ruled in Dynasty 26, and he actually was the one, 2 Kings 23, speaks about assassinating King Josiah of Judah. This is almost the second, both of them being Combs, because when they were in that particular dynasty, right, it says they followed the footsteps of his ancestors and looked to Greek mercenaries to fight against the Babylonians in supposed favor of the Assyrians. I emphasize on that because they try to sit there and say that ancient Kemet was the way and this was that. Now, how does that tie into what we're talking about? Because when you talk about who set up or saw society was the Jewish man in 1973. 2 years after Israelites from Chicago and Detroit and said, you know what, America, I'm going to Ritz Ramon, I'm going to Jerusalem, and I'm going to Dimona in 1971. So they had to create something in order to sit there and throw our people off from the truth. Like they said in the debate, the Ben Ami movement is the only successful movement of our people outside of America. Ashra crazy, you take people over to a trip for X amount of G's, and then they come right back to Brooklyn to work. Right. Next. Now, when I put this really, what I'm speaking about, this is then of Dynasty 4, killing a black man. This is Namir, supposedly Namir, killing another black man. But this is supposed to be civilization. This is supposed to be higher learning. Ancient Egypt was not what they try to make it out to be. And that's why you find people, when you point this out, they try to say, well, you know, if you look at the walls instead of the papyrus, that's what some say. If it's not on the walls, then it's not accurate. But what your dumb ass just realized, what you don't realize you just said, part of the language is, you just cut Egypt off medicinally because there are no medicinal records on the walls. They're only on the papyrus. So if you only look into the walls, that's why you're saying there's no records of medicinal purposes. Next, please, let's go on. Now, sources of slaves in Egypt, because they want to quote European Jews, the fake white Jew, who says, oh, well, there's no evidence of Israelites being slaves in Egypt. So they take it what the European Jew says, and then try to sit there and say that must be the truth, because they under the impression that they're the real Jew. We're going to go over how that term Jew came about anyway. All right, it says, in another case, the wife was left 4 Amu Asiatic slaves. This is Sir Allen Gardner, Egypt of the Pharaohs. Now unto the Middle Kingdom is there evidence of Nubians and Asiatics, which includes the Israelites, as domestic slaves in Egypt, right? This comes from a book called The Egypt World. There is evidence from Tel El Dal, a community of Asiatics existed in the early 13th dynasty. There is also references of camps of Asiatic workmen. Now they try to say, well, they were war captives. Fool, let me ask you a question. Do you take the record from the slave master, or do you take the record from the slave? I'd rather take it from the victim as opposed to the said oppressor. You understand? So they try to say, well, Moses, basically he killed the guy and ran away. No, what he did is what Nat Turner did. You understand? He killed somebody who was oppressing his brother. See, this is why they have no concept on what to do for the future. Ezekiel, right, my brother, talks about Israel having a third war, or they call it Third World War. These people ain't ready for nothing like that or thinking on them kind of lines. They don't have no kind of papyrus talk about how they're going to get Kemet back. Read on. Next, please. Brooklyn Papyrus. This is accurately called the Brooklyn Museum Papyrus 35.1446. The Asiatic, part of the translation. The Asiatic woman, Menahem, the Asiatic woman, Shifra. Shifra is mentioned in Exodus chapter 1. A weaver of linen. The Asiatic woman, Asher. She is called Word in Teth. Weaver. Ancient Near Eastern text 2 by Pritchard. Source. Read on. Next, please. David, king of Israel. In the Armada records EA 256, we see in part, say to Yan Hamu, my Lord, message of Mut Baal, it's supposed to be Baal, sorry, your servant, I fell at the feet of my Lord, Mut Baal, see I spelled it right here, has fled. He has hidden Ayab. I swear, Ayab is not in Pella. He has been in a campaign of 2 months. Just ask Benin Ima. Just ask Dabdua. Just ask Yeshua. The bold names are Benaiah, that was King David's soldier, David and Jesse. Jesse was the father of David. This is coming from what they refer to as the Armada records. All right, so we're going to go on. Next, please. Yehu, king of Israel. We all know about this one. The tribute of Yehu, Ayuah, son of Amri, Ri. I received from him tribute, silver, gold, and golden vase with pointed bottom, tin and staff for a king. Ancient Near Eastern text, volume 1 by Pritchard. Next, please. Hezekiah, king of Yehuda. As for Hezekiah of Judah, 46 of his strong cities I besieged to scale the ladders. So when people, no offense not to blow up his name, when the guy Saraceni, well, the Assyrians was just kicking their ass. Let me explain something. If the Israelites and the Assyrians speak about Israel came to the beatdown, does it not sound accurate?
Right.
What nation leaves a record for their daughters and their grandsons saying, son, we got up. Nobody does that. You understand? So that just goes to show you what it is and what it's talking about. Next, please. Uzziah, king of Yahudah. The annals of Tiglath-Pileser III identify the leader as Ephraim, Azriel of Judah. Atlas of the Bible, Reader's Digest. This is what they say is by the tomb of King Uzziah. See, Lakah, for you, Uzziah or Uzziah, king of Yehuda, right here. That's the part that says it right here. This is how you know the what they call the modern Hebrew script is not modern Hebrew script. It was in ancient days, but it wasn't too popular. Next, please, brother. Manasseh, king of Yehuda. I called up the kings of the country of Hatti. Hatti is the Hittites. On the other side of the Euphrates, Baalu, king of Tyre. Manasseh, king of Judah. So, my question then is, Bible Dictionary, page 616, where you saw her dome in Ashobani Palm. Next slide, please. My question is, that's the stela or the prism that it talks about. That, what are these people talking about when they say, well, there's no external references of anybody in the Bible? Right. You have not done your studies. Next slide, please. Jehoiakim, king of Judah. 10 seller of oil for Yahu king of Judah. This is speaking about the Babylonian record when they captured Jerusalem the first time in 597 BCE. That's important for later. Next slide, please, brother.
They say Israel don't exist. That's not a king.
They try to say Israel don't exist, but the king is recorded in the Bible, Tanakh, Masoretic text, King James, Gideon's version, and the Assyrian record, Babylonian record of catching the beat down, but he ain't exist. So you're right. Tiglath going in on Israel. Next slide, please. No, go back. I'm sorry. I wanted to point this out right here. This is when they did the siege of Lachish. All right? If you notice, the man with the afro kind of looking aspect of them being humbled. Read on. Next, please. I'm sorry. Some sheep. Tiglath boasted such. As for Menahem, who was the king of Egypt, the northern tribes, I overthrew him like a snowstorm, and he fled like a bird alone. I imposed on him tribute, gold, silver, linen, garments, and multicolored trimmings. Now, in your own time, when you go into the scriptures and read in the book of 2 Kings 15, Menahem talks about gathering things from the royalty and the rich people of the northern tribes to give to the king of Assyria. They paid tribute to avoid being besieged, like we pay rent and mortgage to avoid the marshal. Read on.
That means next slide.
Yes, please. King Ahaz's Bula, Ahaz in Hebrew means he seized or he grasped. All right, so that's what that's talking about right here. Saying to Ahaz, king of Judah, the son of Yotam, king of Judah. This is a Bula. This is like the Hebrew version, or maybe the Egyptian version of what they call a scarab. All right, and that's what somebody put that seal in and etched that in. Next one, please. Ahaz is mentioned in the scriptures. I, Elisha, king of Moab. My father was king of Moab. Omri, the king of Israel. This is Elisha Stella. But there's no people called Israel. What are you talking about? The Moabites talk about it. Can you show me a Moabite? Some people say the Moabites are there. Some people say the Moabites are over there. But the house of Israel is, was, and will be. All right? It says, in his son, he said, I will oppress Moab. But I saw my desire upon him, and Israel perished utterly. Now, when you go to the book of 2 Kings 3, this talks about that particular war. Read on. Thank you. The Murashu aspect. Now, many people know about this. Many people may not. Now, this is very important. According to Macmillan Bible Atlas, we see the following. Neo-Babylonian cuneiform tablets, especially the archive of Banking House of Murashu at Nippur. Nippur is by modern-day Iraq. Contain many references to Judeans, Israelites, as well as other exiled peoples. In the Bible as history, written by Warner Keller, he states the following. One day, these jewelers called on Murashu and sons. And then he goes on and on. We're going to be on a time limit. Continue, please. The Lachish letter, oh, by the way, the Murashu writings is dated to the Persian era, or the Persian Empire. So we're speaking about 444 BCE era, all right? Hold out for that. The Lachish letters to Eliashib. I use this on Facebook to crack people. Why? Because they try to sit there and say, well, you know, if you look at it from, can you find me any native Hebrew writing dated to the time before Herod? And as a teacher in the school, I'm like, why do they always ask about Herod? Then it dawned on me. Herod was Esau. Esau continued with the other nations, and they created this thing called the Society. So that's why you keep on hopping on them. You want somebody else to say that. So when this is dated to the era of the 6th century BCE, Facebook scholars are quiet. Read on. Now, Elephantine matter to our Lord Begoas, governor of Judah. Elephantine is by the first cataract of the Nile in Egypt. Jeremiah chapter 44 speaks about Israelites in Nof, Tapankes, and in the land of Patros. Patros is as you go to where Elephantine is. This is dated to the era of still 27th dynasty of Egypt. All right, the Israelites was there scattered. Go on to the next. Go back, I'm sorry. May the God of heaven, black people were not atheists. Next. Passover papyrus. To my brother Getaniah and his colleagues, the Jewish, garrison, your brother Kanania. Yadonia means he will judge. Yah will judge. Kanania, the Most High is gracious. Right? The welfare of my brother may God seek at all times. Then it talks about during the Passover and what they call the Temple of Elephantine. Next.
In the 14 days and everything like that. Ritually clean, knowing.
Yeah, next.
You got time to go in.
Baruch and Gemaria, right? This is speaking about the Bula of Baruch, the son of Neriah. Neriah was the father of Baruch. Baruch was the scribe of Jeremiah. He has a book inside the Apocrypha. And this is Gemaria, also written inside the book of Jeremiah. Gemel, Mel, Resh, Yod, Hey, Wow, Gemar Yahu, or Gamara Yaha. Depends on what Hebrew you're speaking. All right? So that's what this is talking about right here. Dated before 300 BC. Next.
Kill him, Kashub!
Gezer calendar. The Gezer calendar, a Hebrew inscription speaking of matters of trade and when acts were done according to a set time. Dated to the era of Solomon. This is what they would like to call the Paleo. What are you talking about? The children of Israel had to be from out of the land of Egypt, and then the man is saying the children of Israel never existed. You know what they don't want? They don't want Shabbat. They don't want, okay, hold on. No, you like that? You like the red blood. They into that. You don't want no diet laws. You don't want no laws against lesbianism. You don't want no laws about what to do and what not to do. Deuteronomy 22. You find something, you hold it. They want to have finders, keepers, losers, reapers. I need you to sit there and explain where is Shabbat or Hanukkah or Purim inside of any of the wars of Egypt. Because they had a 10-day week. Ancient Israel had a 7-day week. The calendar is different. Next, Hebrew Habiru. Here we go. Hebrew is member of the Semitic peoples living in Palestine. A Semitic language of the Afro-Asiatic family. The language of the ancient Hebrews. Afro-Asiatic. Other related to Afro-Asiatic. Hemito-Semitic languages. A family of languages including the subfamilies of Semite, Egyptian, Berber, Cushitic. The numerous references, this is all from the dictionary, Underbridge Dictionary. The numerous references to the activity of Habiru as a disruptive and social element in Canaan comprise a facet of the Amarna-rekics, right? So it goes to them being called Habiru, Apiru. There can be little doubt that the name Hebrew derives from the term. Next slide, please. Indo-European languages. Hebrew is not on here.
That's right.
At all. So how is the European Jew, Ashkenazi Jew, Sephardic Jew, because there was two Sepharad. That's another subject. We get into later. Now, Hebrew is not on here. There's nothing on here. Hebrew is nothing about Europe. You have the Hittite, Indo-Iranian, Greek, Italic, Armenian, Germanic, Albanian, Slavic, Celtic, Baltic, Tocharian. I remember that from school. Anyway, nonetheless, none of these here is where Hebrew is. Read on next. Thank you. Afro-Asiatic languages. We have Akkadian, Hebrew, Aramaic. So the European Jew is not of the Afro-Asiatic people. All right, so let that be noted and understood. Next slide, please. 201 Hebrew verbs. This book right here, I use this when I teach in Shema. Says the Hebrew verb differs from the English and other Indo-European verbs in several aspects. It's because it's not European. That's why Hebrew began to be replaced with Greek during the era of the Maccabees. This is how you get Maccabeus. Read on. Sinai Siloam inscription. This is the Siloam inscription of ancient Israel when they was traveling in the wilderness of Sinai. These are other aspects of it. So this is the Sinai. This is the Siloam inscription. All right? And you see the Paleo ancient Hebrew written upon that. I'm going over that because they say there's no evidence of writing outside of the Bible. So they try to sit there and say, well, if you look at the Bible and everything of that sort and so forth and so on, you have it to where they created that in Europe, even though the first country is Ethiopia and not England. And then they try to sit there and say that it was created by the Council of Nicaea. Next. Isaiah Yavne writing. This is Yavne writing dated to the time of the era of the Maccabees. This is from the Dead Sea Scrolls, which they found in 1947. All right, the Dead Sea Scrolls date back all the way to the era of the time of the Maccabees. All right, next. Darius the First, right here, and what they call the Susa Palace, Babylon. See how they look? Next. Egyptian and Aramean. See how they look? This is an ancient Egyptian. This is the Arameans. Now, why is Aramean important? The Arameans was the maternal side of the house of Israel. Leah and Raquel were Aramean. These would have been how her relatives looked. Right. No. Meza, what are you talking about? The children of Israel were not black. They descend from people who are black. Read next. Ethiopia 1 and 2. This is Taharka, who ruled in Ethiopia and in Egypt. And this is a modern day Ethiopian man. Next. The Minoan people. The original children of Japhet were not Caucasian looking white folks. Right. That's one of the things I want to emphasize about that. When you look upon all their artwork, such as we see from here, such is the case. Now, what happened in the Peloponnesian War between the people of Athens and the people of Sparta, that's when you start to sit there and see the difference between the black Greeks and who later on became known as the common folk Greek or the white ones. All right? So look that up when you can concerning the Peloponnesian War. Next. Thank you. Black Asiatics. All right? This says Palace of Ramses III, wall depicting a prisoner, an Amu, an Asiatic captive. This was dated to the time of the first, not the second, but the first era of the Hyksos. Next, hold on, because they try to say, one guy tried to tell me, well, basically, the Hyksos, well, pardon me, the sound. They was trying to sit there and say, well, if you look at it, the Hyksos were fair-skinned. Brother, can you stand up, please? You don't mind? I want everybody to see this. Now, my friend wasn't able to come through, but I have a cousin that's just like him. Same reference about the skin color and complexion. I've met Puerto Ricans that told me that I got family members that make me look white. You understand? So you need to stop trying to play the light skin and dark skin game. You understand? That's what they're trying to do. Next, please. Hebrews in Egypt, painted in 1867. This guy's name is Poynter, Poynter. This is how he painted the Hebrews in Egypt as captives. In 1867. That's polite. Teacher. All right? So this is something to be pointed out. This is how they thought the Hebrews looked in the 1860s. Next. Black Arabs. All right, now I want to sit there and take time out. 1 second. I got this from this book right here called Black Summa The Physical Evidence by Herman Hermstein. All right? That's where I got these particular pictures from. These people, both black Arabs that you sit there and see in even modern day Iraq. Next. Dura Europus and the Nubian captives. Dura Europus, this is dated to the era of the 3rd and 2nd century BCE. Somebody tried to one time say, oh, those were Assyrian refugees. Because if you look at it, the Tanakh says, don't make any images. It does, but that don't mean the people didn't make any images. You understand? So what this is talking about, the Nubian captives and pro-black Kemet. You wouldn't have your brother looking like that. Next. Really? Now, I pointed this out here, you understand, for a reason. Hashar, Daniela, myself, men who you can see and talk to. Who is? What is this? This is supposed to be Anubis, the man with a dog head. Do you realize how, no offense to the canine family, do you realize how the dog is depicted in the Torah? That's why you give the animals that die themselves to the dogs. Because we are not supposed to eat that. You see, but this is what they want to sit there and portray themselves to be as. When you're not a true Egyptian portraying such, you're no different than an Ashkenazi Jew saying he's a Hebrew. You claiming somebody else is. Next.
The Lord is their German shepherd.
To the Facebook scholars, are they black people? And are they black people? Oh, the Egyptians were black. I wouldn't want my daughter pictured like that. Next. Then we got this image right here. We went over this before with the brother Divine Prospect on Facebook. Why? Oh, they're just workers. Why is your man right here sitting down if they all are supposed to just be working? That's called captivity. That's why when it's sitting, the people will rest standing. Next, please. Correct. Egypt, Canaan, and Israel by Radford. We may describe the typical Asiatic man of the early 3rd millennium BCE as bearded, which is different than ancient Egyptian culture, and with a long braided hair confined by a fillet and falling behind the ears. Now, this gentleman here doesn't have a braids, but we do see the beard and an aspect of saying about a fillet, which is like a tie around one's head. And the fringes. Continue, brother. Rogers versus Williams. J.A. Rogers stated in his book, 100 Amazing Facts, that the characters of the Bible are largely Negroes. And he lived from 1880 or 1883 to 1966. Then we got the gentleman who sold his house, supposedly, I'm understanding. He sold his house to get his book out called Destruction of Black Civilization. No offense if y'all sell it, but it's garbage. That the ancient Hebrews were white. All the pictures we shown were people of color. But then one fool tried to sit there and tell me, well, white was really a status. Shut up. Next. Next. Biblical archaeology and focus in Jeremiah the prophet. The children of Dan in a horn altar. The children of Judah in a horn altar. The sin of Judah is written with a pen of iron and with the pen of a diamond. It is graven upon the tablet of their heart and upon the horns of your altars. And thou, even of thyself, shalt discontinue from the heritage that I, the Most High, gave thee. And I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land that thou knowest not. So, when did the European Jew serve other nations? They were slaughtered, but they did not serve them. There's a difference. All right, so let's understand the distinction between the two. Next slide, please. Biblical archaeology. In an inscription of Shalmaneser III, Ahab of Israel is identified as one of the leaders of the oppression. Ahabu Siliala, meaning Ahab the Israelites. So therefore, Ray Higgins doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, there's no references of the Israelites. You know what, man? If Ray Higgins and Polite and the rest of them stop talking about Israel, they ain't talking about nothing. That's right. We are Israelites, so we can keep on talking who we are. But if these dudes stop talking, what are you talking about? Nothing. You understand? And he's a cop. But that's supposed to be your hero. Next. What are they, oh, what are they talking about? Man, typo out there, whoa. It seems to be in the interest of some to try to deny that the people of ancient Israel existed. Such, however, shows to not be accurate. All right, so we're going to move on to part 2. Continue, please. Part 2 on the same slide, though, not the other part. Let's stay on the same one, my lad. The Bible is history. There is evidence, oh, let's go in Israel, that many of those time-honored allies, Canaanite / Phoenician, a generic term. The word Phoenician comes from the Greek word for purple, because that's what they used to use to trade in. Inhabitants of Tyre were forced around the same time to quit their city. They moved all the way across the Mediterranean to found Carthage and what is now Tunisia. Next, please, let's go in, brother. Hebrewism of West Africa. Sir Harry Johnston is of the opinion that the Phoenicians were a Semitic tribe closely allied to the Hebrew stock. Inscriptions indicate that certain tribes of Asher and Zabulon lived in Carthage ever since the founding of the city. In Africa, the first Jewish graveyards to be noted are those of Carthage, and with Jewish catacombs are recognized. Now you see why Rome wanted to destroy and smash it. Next. The tribes and the Phoenicians: Zebulun, Asher, Naphtali, Dan, Issachar, Manasseh, Ephraim, Tyre, Phoenicia, Tyre. That's the point of me showing this. All right? Because they lived in the same vicinity. Read on. Thank you. Carthage map. This is the Mediterranean Sea, northern Tunisia. Carthage. The Carthaginians were Semites. Now let me explain. Sem is the Greek transliteration of the Hebrew Shem. There is no sh, sh syllable in Greek. So when they heard the Israelites say Shem or Sham, they would say it's them, because that's how their language can transform it. All right? Akin in blood and features to the ancient Jews. Wow. Their language now ending struck a Hebrew note, as when it called its chief magistrates shofet, which means judges, because the Hebrew word shafat means to judge. All right? Next slide, please. Ezekiel chapter 27. The inhabitants of Zedon and Arvad were the mariners. Now this is talking about King Tyrus or Tyre, right? The ancients of Gebal. They are Persia and Lud, and the Phut were in thy army. Judah and the land of Israel were thy merchants. Dan also in Javan, which is the Greeks, Javan, going to and fro occupied by thy fears. Read on. Carthage, according to Will Durant in his book called Caesar in Christ. Her settlement was called Kart Hadasht, new town. The Greeks transformed the name into Kar-Shedon, the Romans into Carthago. The Latins gave the name Africa to the region around Carthage and Utica, and followed the Greeks in calling its Semitic population Phoenician. Next. Zephaniah, era of Josiah of Yahudah, the prophet, the king, the tribe. From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my suppliance, even a daughter of mine dispersed, shall bring my offering. The remnant of Israel shall not do iniquity, nor speak lies, nor a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth. Sing, O daughter of Zion, shout, O Israel, be glad and rejoice with thy heart, O daughter of Jerusalem. Next, please, we gotta go on. The blue and the white Nile River. So when it says beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, here we got the white Nile, the blue Nile. You gotta be going west, because if you go east, you're going to the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean. So Zephaniah 3 saying from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, speaking about Israel scattering in part, had to be going west. Continue. Diaspora of the Hebrews. We all see this. This from Hebrew Israel of West Africa. Out of Jerusalem, down through there, boom, settled over here. Next. The book speaks Isaiah 11. We all know this one. It shall come to pass in that day that Yah shall set his hand again the second time, and to capitalize that, to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam. So this shows you, the Bible tells you, where the Israelites scattered at. Read on. Thanks. Next one, please.
No, that's not mine.
The book speaks in Ezekiel chapter 11. Again, the word of the Most High came unto me, saying, Son of man, thy brethren, even thy brethren, the men of thy kindred, and all the house of Israel, holy, all the tribes. Are they unto whom the inhabitants of Jerusalem have said, Get you far from the Most High, unto us is this land given a possession. Talking about the drama and beef between the northern and the southern kingdom. Therefore say, thus saith the Most High, although I cast thee far off among the heathen, and although I have scattered them among the countries. So the guy in the whitewash video part 4 saying only one tribe of the 12 tribes was taken into captivity. So you see in Ezekiel 9, this says scattered. All the tribes of Israel scattered. Not just one. Read. Respect to my teacher Kohen Mikael out of Kashub. In his book, Israelites and Jews, the significant difference, he said the following. The historian Philo stated 1 million Hebrews resided from Libya and Egypt to the Catabasmos, from the Catabasmos to the border of Ethiopia. Read on. Respect again to my teacher, he states the following. The Greek historian and geographer Strabo, the date, wrote concerning the Hebrews of Cyrene, which is in Libya. Now these Hebrews already got into all cities, and it is hard to find a place that the habitable earth that has not admitted this tribe of men. So when the Most High said he scattered Israel, he ain't lying. Other records talk about it. Read on. Respect again to my teacher, he said the following. When the Greeks and the Romans invaded the East, the Edomites migrated into Europe and assimilated with other cultures, carrying their acquired Israelite traits with them. Read on. We're going to go on. Will Durant, in his book entitled Caesar and Christ, by 70 AD, there were thousands of Jews in Seleucia on the Tigris and in other Parthian cities. They were numerous in Arabia. Babylon and Timbuktu gets into that when they talk about the Israelites in the land of Yaqri, right? And crossed thence into Ethiopia. They abounded in Syria and Phoenicia. Next. The Lost Jews, written by a European Jew named Rappaport. The Symbolian is a key element, mystery surrounding the Philosopher's Beta Israel origins. Find them and you will find the Lord's tribes of Israel according to legend, which had been placed in America, China, Syria, and other countries. Now why did I quote this? Because the philosophers say they thought all the Jews in the world were black. So if they're saying that they were scattered in America, who are they talking about? When the European Jew went to them in the 1700s, then who are you? We don't know who you are. We already got our Torah, we already got our thing, we doing our thing right here, or we are Jews too. No, y'all not. Eventually they made them symbols, but that's another subject. Next. Ancient Israel by Michael Grant. Herod made his way to Rome, where he met with Antony. This is Antony, Mark Antony. Prompted the Roman government to make a treaty with Herod and send him back to Judea as a king. All right? The Hasmonean was descended from the Maccabees line, then was cut off from ruling. All right? The Romans gave Herod this job. Esau and Rome as a unit. Next. Herod continued. The desecration, you can go on. Now my explanation, after the death of Augustus, we see that Tiberius ruled, then Caligula ruled. Maccabees TV, we went over the fact that Caligula and the Israelites. The next ruler was Claudius, then after him was Nero. Nero murdered his mother after he cohabitated with her. Yeah, sexually. Next to him was Vespasian, then Titus, and we now get to the point to go into the punchline. Yeah, he slept with his moms, man. After urgent surrender in vain, Titus pushed on with the siege. It's not a long-lost mother, he was a pervert. He succeeded in capturing the temple, which was consumed by flames. Anyone able to claim connection to the house of David was hunted down and eliminated. So this is coming from Michael Grant in his book, History of Ancient Israel. Now, next please, we gotta go on, bro. It is obvious that we know about the onslaughts from the Ptolemies, the Seleucids, such as the mother and her sons being murdered for not eating pork, right? We read in a situation where Rome and the Israelites starving to where they were eating leather for food. Here is my question. Do the white Jews look for the family of Hadrian, the family of Antiochus, the family of Trajan, the family of Caligula and hold them on trial for war crimes as they do to the Nazis. There was a man that was 94 years old, brothers and sisters. They had this man in jail for 4 years because he was a former Nazi. The white Jew is a very vindictive person. So if they were the Jews under the Greek hegemony, why are they not looking for the Greeks to persecute them? Because they know they're not the Jews that was under the Greek hegemony. That's why they're not looking for them. Next, brother. They do not hold them on trial. Okay, boom, 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 boom. All right, next, please. We gotta go on. All right, now we're gonna go to part 2 of this, and then we're gonna close out very, very soon. It's not much longer. It's entitled Presentation of Mark Part 2. How's everybody doing? Good? All right. So we're gonna move on in this particular part. Now this right here gets more so into the aspect of the European so-called Jew more directly. All right? Divine Prospect, you in the house, brother?
Who next?
We need somebody to find the All right, First Maccabees chapter 1. The brethren, the Jews that be at Jerusalem and in the land of Judea, wish unto the brethren, the Jews that be throughout Egypt, not England, Egypt, health and peace. Egypt came to be a major place for the Jews after the destruction of Jerusalem by Babylon. Anderson, understanding the Old Testament. That's why this is Apocrypha. You know they don't like to go into the Apocrypha. They don't like doing that. There's a reason. Read on. Josephus, book 13, chapter 1. Hyrcanus. Now this is John Hyrcanus, right? The nephew of Judas Maccabeus. Took also Dora and Marisa, the cities of Idumea, which is Esau, Edom, and subdued all the Edomians or the Edomites, and permitted them to stay in that country if they were circumcised the genitals and made use of the laws of the Jews. This is how Esau got a hold of the culture of Israel, through John Hyrcanus. Read on. He was the son of Simon Maccabeus. Deuteronomy 28, verse 43 to 44. Let's go. Cut up the cracker. The stranger that is among you shall rise above you higher and higher, and you shall come down lower and lower. Who Yahweh, he shall lend to you, and you shall not lend to him. Well, no, time away, no. He shall be the head. Who he get Rosh, and you shall be the tail. Well, Tati and Lizanab, but they say we don't speak Hebrew. Next. We're going to see what that happened to. International Jew by Henry Ford. Magazine authorship, news distribution, legal business, loan business, meat packing, including pork. The meat purveying done in the country. Easy eating, we want you to talk about bitches and hoes, you know, put that out there. Done in the country are in control of the Jews, the white ones, of the United States, or in control of Jews overseas. They don't want to promote the faggotism inside of the rap thing. A heterosexual, straight-minded black man is a threat to the white society. So they want you to have looking like a faggot, being like a faggot, have girls kissing on girls, and everything like that to promote that. You understand? It's wickedness. Right? The Jews are not the chosen people according to Henry Ford. Now, when we get into this part right here, if it says they run the loan business, I teach in the college. When you go to the bursar office, it's them who operate behind the scenes. You understand? When you go to get a loan in a bank, it's them that's behind that. We are the people who sit there and contribute less than 5% of the economy. We are under that curse. They're not. My first teacher, he was may he rest in peace, was a raw Hebrew Israelite teacher. Yeah, he used to just say, you should say Israelite, not Hebrews. But all right, my point nonetheless is this. He was a very raw teacher. He said, the Most High gave Hitler that spirit. You want to be the Jew? You want to be the people of Israel who broke my laws, my statutes, and my commandments? I'm going to show you what happens to a people when they violate my law. See, I put them in ships. Because the Atlantic slave trade went west, but there was also the Atlantic slave trade going east to Europe. You understand? Black Indians talks about that. That book by Lauren Katz. Now, Hitler, according to my first Israelite teacher, got that spirit because you want to be the people, you want to mock my people being blind. I'm going to show you what happens with my people if you want to have that spirit. Next.
Hey, Kashub, hold up. For explanation purposes, the last statement, there you go.
All right. By Jews, we know he mean the Khazar seed, the European Jews. So when Henry Ford, in his book, The International Jew, stated that the Jews are not the chosen people. He's talking about the European people. Where Shika Yah Mizayim Ba'aniyot, the Lord shall bring thee back into Egypt in ships. By the way of I said unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. Now, they try to say, swear up and down, that this word can only mean the land of Egypt, literally. But let's understand from the Hebraic. Let's go on, bro. Kashub's explanation, with reason. Deuteronomy 28 is discussed often. In the 68th verse, we see the word Mizrayim, which is often translated as Egypt, yet the Hebrew rendition says it as double distress. Machzor is the Hebrew word meaning distress. Deuteronomy 28 verse 53 has that word. But they swear we don't speak any Hebrew. Next. Mizrayim, Mizraim, distress or isthmus or boundary. This is written as distress. Mem, Zadeh, Resho, Mem. Matazarayam, depends on what Hebrew you're speaking. This is both said as Egypt. This is Egypt and this is distress. Why did the Israelites call it distress? Because it was the house of bondage. That's the things we pointed out. This is coming from a white person's Hebrew dictionary entitled the Ben Yehuda Dictionary. So let's go on. Stop for a second. Deuteronomy 28:53. The root is Zara, as seen in Isaiah 30 verse 6, translated as the word trouble. From the root Zar, meaning distress, as the 2 Samuel 1:26 in the download faggot community want to sit there and say, well, King David and Jonathan must have been gay. When Shambel was murdered by the police, his friend next to him said, I love you. Love don't mean sex. Right. How many couples you know have sex and they don't know each other's last name?
That's right.
Middle name, social, mother, father, brother. Is that my seed? You understand? So love and sex is not the same thing unless you're dealing with Bastet and Hastor and those gods of Egypt, where they say, oh, that means they're looking at men's penis. So therefore, the women supposedly in the walls of Kevin said, oh, thy perfection is good. I cannot teach my 9-year-old daughter that a penis on the wall is a sign of perfection.
That's
man.
right.
I can teach her Proverbs 31. Your man is supposed to say, you're the best woman. I can teach my baby that. I cannot teach my baby about the penis. No, oh, it's a deeper science. And it's the same thing across the ocean. That's why the Greeks were loving it. Next. Kashub's explanation. Caligula wanted his image in the temple, but that didn't happen. In the year 41 AD, he was assassinated. Nero, in 68 AD, sent Vespasian against Israel, who took over the cities of Galilee, Jotapata, Samaria, and he went back to Rome and had his son do the siege in Jerusalem, because Vespasian was debating with a guy named Vactalins over the throne of Rome. Next. Slaying them. Josephus, Wars of the Jews. Now, why do I go here? Because they like to say that the Deuteronomy 28:68 is talking about Titus taking people from the land of Israel all the way into literal Egypt. Let's see what it says. So this Pharaoh slew all those who have been seditious and robbers, who were in peace one by another. But the young men he chose out of the tallest and most beautiful, Lord God, what they did to them Israelites, those men, and reserved them for the triumph. As for the rest of the multitude that were above 17 years of age, he put them in bonds and sent them to the Egyptian mines. He put them in bonds and sent them to the Egyptian mines. Where the ships at? Ain't there. This is from the book of Josephus. Next. Sent a great number also into the provinces as a present to them, all the Roman provinces. This is how you get Israelites first being occupied in Europe, right? That they might be destroyed upon their theaters. Those gladiatorial shows, those are Israelites, man. Next.
That's right.
Josephus, Wars of the Jews, book 7, 5th chapter. But when the people of Antioch were informed that Titus was approaching, they were so glad at it. For Titus did not stay at Antioch, but continued his progress immediately to Zuzma, which lies on the Euphrates. whether came to him messengers from King of Persia, who brought him a crown of gold upon the victory he gained over the Jews. So when Titus defeated the house of Judah, the southern kingdom that was there, the king of Persia gave him a crown like, good job, that's what we do. And then he departed from Egypt as he came to Jerusalem in his progress. So he went from Antioch, then went over by where the Euphrates is, then went by where Jerusalem is, going to Egypt next, or by land. So Titus took his journey and intended to Egypt and passed over the desert very suddenly. So when they try to say, well, he had to put them in ships in order to sit there and have them go from one place to the next, you're lying. Such is not the case. See, the European Jew, where black men coming out of West 125th Street started speaking on 42nd Street, talking about read, and they will read and go over certain things like that. You're like, no, we have to sit there and stop that to a certain extent. So it must be talking about literal Egypt, because you're then condemning them. Now, for us who are Tanakh based, Old Testament based, if you will, the portion in Deuteronomy 28 is referred to as the portion what they call Ki Tabo. The Maftia portion, which is a sub-portion of the Torah portion, is in Isaiah 60. Isaiah 60 speaks about the ships of Tarshish. Tarshish is Spain/Portugal. They're the ones who set off the slave trade. So why would they connect that aspect unless they know exactly what it's talking about? But niggas is bricks ain't supposed to read. Certainly not anything outside of a comic book or Eric Jerome Dickey's book or anything of the sort of sex chronicles and garbage. Next. Titus matter. We know this is the Arch of Titus made by his faggot brother Domitian. Then you have the Roman Empire, Italy, Egypt, where the children of Israel was. Historians will tell you that the Israelites were the biggest enemies to the Romans during the 1st century AD. They gave the Romans more drama than anyone else. Next. Next. Thank you. Next. Sumos to Titus. Many have crossed the Sinai in times past on foot, right? By animal, or by animal. The Egyptians, the Canaanites, the Syrians, Thumos of Egypt, Alexander of Greece, Titus of Rome, Ashurbanipal of Assyria, the Amalekites. We spoke about the Amalekites earlier. Archaeologists too have crossed the Sinai. Titus crossed, I want to point this out. Titus crossed the Sinai in 5 days. The Jew in Rome, written by L. Feuchtwanger. He stated that he crossed the Sinai. So why they keep on saying it had to be by ship? In 5 days, yeah. We went over there in Josephus. Next. What are these two dudes talking about? So you got Mr. Flip-Em right here. You understand? I spoke to him online. I spoke to him via Maccabees TV. You understand? This is Flip-Em right here. He crisscrosses. Well, the Israelites were dark, and some of them would have been put into captivity, but we are the Jews. Then you got this character right here, who wants to sit there and keep on trying to. This is why I go in with the Hebrew, because he says if a true Hebrew would know Hebrew, right? That's what this fool said. So let's go in and hope this is live streaming and being seen. Let's see how the children of Israel represent. All right, go on. Black Israelites don't know Hebrew. All right. This is the book of Songs of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 10. Dodi Zak Adon Gadul Mir Baba. The word Zak does not mean white, like they try to say. The word for white is Laban, pure, clear, or bright. That's what the word Zak is. Laban is white, but they try to sit there and go to Strong's BS Concordance, which is not a dictionary, it's a concordance, and try to say, well, if you look at that aspect, it says white. Next, don't need white.
Right. Go ahead, Tim.
Isaiah 32:4. The heart also of the rash shall understand knowledge, and the tongue of the stammerer shall be ready to speak plainly. The root word zakot from zak, plainly. Now try to translate that word and put white instead of plain and see what comes out with. But they swear niggas don't read, supposedly. Read, next. Jeremiah 30 verse 6. Pale. The Hebrew word is kiwal. Paleness. Kiwaron. Sha'aluna ur'u'im. Your legs are called. Why does the man travail? Madua ra'iti kandid ber yadav al kalazayu. Where your lada nehefku kal panim le yerako. The key word, yerako, means not paleness. Jeremiah 30 verse 6, King James in the Tanakh is mistranslated. Go on. Deuteronomy 28:32. The Most High shall smite you with consumption, with fever, and with inflammation, with fiery heat. The word, keyword here, time purposes, gerako, means mildew or jaundice. Next. Right? Mildew or jaundice. Bingo, who is dictionary? Gerako, right here. Or sahabet, but we won't focus on that. An abnormal body condition due to an increase of bile pigments in the blood. But is that the only definition? Next. A state of feeling in which views or prejudice or judgment is distorted. That's the plague of the mind that Deuteronomy 28:22 is talking about. Next, we're going to conclude. The black Israelites don't know Hebrew. Somebody lied, Paul. Next. Lamentations 4 verse 7. Zaku Izreha Mishaleg Zaku. Her princes were pure in the snow. They were whiter than milk. But where is the word aban for white? Zaku means pure or clear. So it's not talking about being a white man. You understand? Next. Yeshaya chapter 1. Rakatsu Hizaku. Wash you, make you clean. Talking about character. Rakatsu to wash. Hizaku. Hasiru ro'a. Me'aleke. Put away the evil of your doings. Next. Hizaku rakatsu. Wash you. Next. Oh, yeah, focus on that for those who are able to see. Zakah, the root of hizaku, to be pure. Next, not to be white. Hebrew heritage, African matter. The existence of an active community in Dahomey is reported much later by educated natives of the wider region named Bata and Goza. He speaks of the Yoruba people called B'nai Ephraim. All right, how they have a Torah in their own vicinity. Next. Hebrew heritage, African matter, part 2. Who are the white Jews if the black man comes from the ancient Hebrews? This is coming from a book entitled by Moses Forvar. Hebrew heritage of Black Africa. All right, so you can see the rest for yourself. Next. Diasporic part. This is coming from Valley of the Dry Bones. This is the places where Israel was scattered on the map. All right? Eldad the Danite speaks of the tribe of Dan, Asher, Simeon in Africa in the 9th century AD. So if Christianity got there after Israel was scattered, we are not copycats of the Christians. Next. Hebrewisms of West Africa. John Oldeby in his book Majesty Revels in the Kingdom of Ireland. Many Jews also are scattered over the region. Some natives basing themselves on Abraham's seed, inhabiting both sides of the river. Others are Asian strangers who fled there from the desolation of Jerusalem by Vespasian. Really? They fled there to Western Africa. So, with the time allotted, hopefully we can get a part 2 on. I know there's other speakers. But, so we're going to close the slide out now.